Everybody seems to ask me a lot of questions about, like, do I hate men? Like, I just think that's stupid. No.
A lot of what I have read of people talking about you has been from him.
So we've got Pharrell, who did an interview.
You left home when you were 16 years old. I can imagine that's not the ideal base of.
I've waited 9 years to say anything.
We're talking about artists' rights and how people should be able to rework their deals.
In his mind, maybe it's all the weed, I'm not sure, but
when I was signed to him, I had the same manager that he had, and he has writing credits on my records.
And I'm notorious for, I guess, big surprises.
And he never wrote a song, a lyric a day in his life, okay? Number two, we've got Beyoncé.
Now, one song that created some controversy with Kelis.
All of the stuff she sings about, all this empowerment and stuff, I don't talk about it, I am about it.
Was this song, Get Along With You.
Collaboration between B and Kelis. No, it's not a collaboration, it's called thievery.
And Kelis said, my mind is blown because the level of disrespect and utter ignorance.
Okay, so the reality is, all of this female empowerment stuff, it only counts if you really do it.
And so a lot of the stuff he may not remember. I have moved on. You know what I mean? Like, I moved on.
She was fashion forward before it was profitable. She made rage-fueled R&B when that wasn't a lane. She collaborated with Pharrell, André 3000, Raphael Saadiq, before most people could even pronounce their names. Kelis didn't just make one iconic song, she helped shape the sound of an entire generation. Before Rihanna went edgy, before Solange got artsy, before Beyoncé dropped Lemonade. Kelis was already doing all of that. And she did it without the PR machine, without the label favors, and without a team of handlers cleaning up behind her. Yet when the history books get written, she's barely mentioned. Kelis got robbed by the same people who helped make her famous. Let's talk about how a genre-shifting R&B queen went from dropping Milkshake to milking goats on a remote farm. Not by choice, but because the music industry chewed her up and spat her out. She says Pharrell and the Neptunes, yeah, her so-called friends, never paid her a dime for her first 2 albums. Then the industry turned around and called her the problem. Not black enough for R&B radio. Too wild for pop. Too weird for labels. Too loud for TV. And just when things seemed to settle down, Nas enters the picture. He tattooed her on his arm like she was the love of his life. But years later, she accused him of cheating, abuse, and completely wrecking her emotionally during her pregnancy. So how did Kelis, who was once hailed as the future of R&B, end up blackballed, broke, and cooking on a cannabis show while others got rich off her sound? Let's get into it, because this is not the story the music industry wants you to remember. If you ask most people about Kelis, they'll say one thing. Oh yeah, the Milkshake Girl. But that one song became both her biggest success and her biggest curse. Because after Milkshake exploded in 2003, it's like the industry stamped her job well done and moved on without her. She was treated like a one-hit wonder, when in reality, she was a one-woman genre revolution. Before Beyoncé went full feminist, before Rihanna blurred genre lines, before Doja Cat made weird mainstream, there was Kelis. But here's the thing, Kelis didn't just fade out. She didn't get lazy. She didn't stop trying. She was systematically pushed out. And the proof is in how fast people forgot that she was working nonstop. Dropping albums, touring, collaborating, reinventing herself, while being sabotaged behind the scenes the entire time. She wasn't flaky, she was being fought, by labels, by producers, by her own husband, and nobody ever bothered to ask why a woman with her voice, her look, her style, her talent, suddenly just disappeared. But once you dig a little deeper, the real reason she got sidelined becomes crystal clear. And it starts with 2 names, Pharrell and Chad. Let's be real. Everyone thought Pharrell was the golden boy of the 2000s. He had the beats, the fashion, the babyface charm, but behind the scenes, he was allegedly cutting dirty deals with the same girl he claimed to believe in. Kelis met Pharrell and Chad Hugo when she was still a teenager. They heard her voice, called it unique, and made her the face of their futuristic sound. The Neptunes produced her entire first album, Kaleidoscope, and it worked. She became the edgy, genre-bending it girl of R&B overnight. But what Kelis didn't know at the time, her friends, yes, friends, were allegedly screwing her over from day one. She says their deal was supposed to be a 3-way split. Kelis, Pharrell, and Chad. Equal partners, equal profits. Instead, she claims she didn't get a single dollar in royalties from her first 2 albums. Let that sink in. Caught Out There, Milkshake, Bossy, The hits that built her brand made them rich while she toured just to survive. She says she was lied to, manipulated, and signed a contract she didn't fully understand because she trusted them. And when she brought it up, Pharrell allegedly looked her in the face and said, "Well, you signed it." Oh, and the kicker? While Pharrell was collecting checks off her voice, he was also dodging the press whenever the topic came up. He still never directly addressed her accusations. So while the media was hyping the Neptunes as music gods, Kelis was grinding in the background, financially cut out of her own legacy by the people who called her family. But sadly, this was just the beginning of the sabotage, because after Pharrell came the record labels. Kelis wasn't just ahead of her time. She was in the wrong era entirely. In the late 90s and early 2000s, record labels wanted boxes. You were either urban or pop, sexy or street. You couldn't be weird, loud, black, feminine, and genre-bending all at once. And Kelis, she was all of that. From her wild hair colors to her jazz rock electro R&B fusion sound, she didn't fit the cookie-cutter mold, and the industry hated that. Labels straight up told her she wasn't black enough for urban radio. They even criticized her for screaming on Caught Out There, as if emotional rage isn't a valid form of expression for a black woman. Then when she leaned into her fashion-forward, edgy aesthetic, they pulled her aside and hit her with a checklist. Change your hair, lose weight, tone it down. And when she didn't, they started shelving her projects. Her second album, Wonderland, never got a US release. Not because it wasn't good, it was praised overseas, but because the label said they didn't know how to market her. Translation: you don't fit the narrative we're trying to sell. So instead of reworking the marketing strategy, they told her to change, re-record the album, make it more radio-friendly. Kelis said no, and just like that, she was dropped. She wasn't difficult, she was different. But the music biz doesn't reward different, it punishes it. And while her sound was being buried, her personal life was about to take center stage in the worst possible way. Because the next man in her life wasn't just a rapper, he was about to become her biggest heartbreak. On paper, Kelis and Nas looked like hip-hop royalty. She was the fiery, futuristic R&B rebel. He was the smooth New York lyricist with legendary status. They met at a puffy after-party in 2002, and Nas didn't waste a second. He walked right up to her and said, "I've been looking for you for years. I want to make you my wife." Sounds like a fairy tale, right? Yeah, until you find out what was really going on behind the scenes. Nas got her name tattooed. Kelis moved to Atlanta to build a life with him, and from the outside, fans saw a power couple. But Kelis later said the red flags were there from the beginning. She just ignored them. She described their relationship as beautifully toxic. In interviews, Nas called her Courtney Love mixed with a mahogany queen. That's not a compliment. That's code for chaos wrapped in beauty. By 2004, they were engaged. But by 2009, Kelis was filing for divorce while 7 months pregnant, and the drama was explosive. She accused Nas of cheating. She accused him of drinking too much, smoking too much, spending too much. Worse, she said things got physical. In a raw interview with Hollywood Unlocked, Kelis didn't hold back. She claimed their fights were violent, mutual, and dangerous, but that Nas was usually so drunk he couldn't even remember what happened. Nas denied everything. He painted her as the aggressor and accused her of being hostile. It turned into a he said, she said nightmare, with a baby in the middle. And if you thought that was the end of it, oh no, because Kelis gave birth alone, while Nas was allegedly partying at a club, too wasted to even enter the hospital. Then, in the ultimate petty move, Nas posed with her wedding dress. Yes, the literal dress she left behind, on the cover of his 2012 album, Life is Good. It was supposed to be artistic, but to Kelis, it was just another way for a man to profit off her pain. Their love story? It was never really love. It was a marketing fantasy built on dysfunction, and Kelis was the one who paid the price. And while all of that personal chaos was unfolding, the industry was already sharpening its knives. Because next came arrests, media smears, and a rumor so wild even Wendy Williams got involved. By the late 2000s, Kelis wasn't just battling her ex, she was battling everyone. The cops, the press, and the music industry that once claimed to love her. Let's start with March 2007. Kelis got arrested in Miami Beach after allegedly screaming racial slurs at undercover cops posing as sex workers. According to the reports, she charged at them and had to be held back by her friends. TMZ had a field day. She was hit with disorderly conduct charges, but later acquitted. Still, the damage was done. The media called her unhinged. Labels got nervous. And instead of being seen as bold and outspoken, Kelis was suddenly labeled problematic. But that was nothing compared to the next scandal. In 2008, Wendy Williams went on air and claimed there was a leaked sex tape floating around, allegedly starring Kelis and a rapper named Infrared. Kelis's camp denied it immediately. They said it wasn't her and threatened legal action. But the damage was done again. Another public hit, another rumor, another distraction. And all this while she was pregnant with Nas's child, living in emotional chaos and legal mess. Then came the final straw. Kelis filed for divorce in April 2009. She cleared out their house, left behind her infamous green wedding dress, and went ghost. Nas? He found the dress and used it as a prop on his album cover. Because of course he did. And get this, while Kelis was in labor with their son, Knight Jones, Nas was allegedly at a nightclub getting hammered. When he finally showed up to the hospital, he was so drunk, security wouldn't even let him in. This wasn't just a messy breakup. It was character assassination, fed by rumors, headlines, and an industry that had already turned its back on her. Her label dropped her. The press dragged her. Her marriage was in shambles. And her career, basically DOA. But instead of breaking down, Kelis did something no one expected. She walked away, not just from Nas, not just from music, from the entire toxic machine that chewed her up. After years of being used, erased, and labeled difficult, Kelis did something the industry never saw coming. She quit playing their game. Instead of begging for another record deal or trying to claw her way back into a system that never protected her, she said, "I'm out." While other artists were chasing chart placements, Kelis enrolled in culinary school. Yes, culinary school. And not just for fun. Sis trained at Le Cordon Bleu, the elite French program. Turns out, food was her real piece. She launched her own sauce line called Bounty in Full, released a cookbook, and started living off the grid. Literally. We're talking about farming, goats, homemade ingredients, not red carpets and tour buses. And yet, while she was quietly building her new empire, she still dropped music on her own terms. Her 2010 album Flesh Tone leaned into EDM before it was trendy. It charted well in Europe, hit dance floors in the US, and let her re-enter music without the industry puppeteering her. But make no mistake, this was no comeback. Kelis wasn't trying to get back on top. She was trying to live. By 2014, she'd filmed a cooking show pilot called Saucy and Sweet, dropped her album Food, and was selling out limited-run shows for her loyal fan base. She got remarried to photographer and real estate agent Mike Mora, and finally found the low-key love she'd always wanted. They moved to a farm 2.5 hours outside of LA, surrounded by nature animals and absolutely zero music execs. She raised her sons. She co-owned a farm in Colombia. She hosted Cooked with Cannabis on Netflix in 2020. And even then, the world still tried to put her in a box. She's a chef now? Isn't she the girl from Milkshake? But Kelis never cared about what anyone thought. She said it best herself. Being famous has never validated me, ever. While her peers were chasing Grammys, Kelis was growing tomatoes, making sauces, and finally living a life that nobody could control. But even with all her success outside of music, there's one question that still lingers. Why hasn't she ever gotten the credit she deserves? Let's get one thing straight. Kelis didn't just make one iconic song. She helped shape the sound of an entire generation. Before Rihanna went edgy, before Solange got artsy, before Beyoncé dropped Lemonade. Kelis was already doing all of that. And she did it without the PR machine, without the label favors, and without a team of handlers cleaning up behind her. She was fashion forward before it was profitable. She made rage-fueled R&B when that wasn't a lane. She collaborated with Pharrell, André 3000, Raphael Saadiq, before most people could even pronounce their names. Yet when the history books get written, she's barely mentioned. Why? Because she refused to play the role. She didn't smile for the cameras. She didn't stay quiet when contracts were shady. And she definitely didn't stay silent when her marriage got abusive. And the industry hates that. They hate women who talk back. They hate black women who don't bend. They hate when you can't be controlled. So instead of praising her, they pushed her out. They reduced her to a catchy hook about milkshakes and ignored the fact that she was years ahead of the curve. But here's the twist. Kelis doesn't want your sympathy. She doesn't need a pity Grammy or a belated apology. She's got her kids, she's got her farm, she's got peace, and she's got something the industry could never give her: freedom. As of now, Kelis's net worth is estimated at $4 million. Not bad for someone who was supposedly done. But her impact? You can't put a price on that. So the next time someone tries to call her a one-hit wonder, remind them, she didn't fall off. She walked away. And honestly, she might have been the smartest one in the game all along.